Hello everybody, it's time to push on now with this DR1 refurbishment. I think I'm going to get this fuselage covered. I'm going to make a start at least, and to do that I've already prepped the surface, all the edges where the covering is to be stuck down, nothing in between, just the edges and the main part at the front here. They've had a coat of Mod Podge, which is my preferred adhesive. It works really well. I think Gorilla Glue and other products like that would work just as well. I'm going to start with the bottom covering first. I think I'll need to take this, well, I will need to take the undercarriage off to do this front part. Underside, sides, and then the top. The sides, rather than doing it in one big piece, I think I'm actually going to stop here and have this front piece overlapping. I think it'll work quite well. First thing is I'm going to use some old unwanted wallpaper, and that's going to provide me with a template so that I can cut out the first layer without a lot of waste. And to do that, my preferred method is to either just to use a brass rubbing method. In this case, actually, it's so big I don't need to. I can actually just crease the paper, which is what I'm doing here. And I'll cut that out. And that'll be the template for cutting out the dress lining. So I'll cut this out. We'll have the template. I'm going to give about 1/4 inch overlap all the way around, and then we'll start ironing it on. I've used the template to mark out the material that I need, and I'm using these crimping shears, which are actually scale crimping shears. I've never used them for that purpose. They're simply very good. They stop the edges of the cloth from fraying. And I've allowed about 1/4 inch overlap. Carefully cut this out. I'll get this done, and the first piece ironed on. I feel like I'm making some real progress. I think the model will suddenly become very solid. The wife actually commented when I did the tail surface how big it looked. When you can see through it, it never looks as big. And I think the same will happen with the fuselage. Once it's covered, it suddenly becomes much bigger. So I'll cut this out. This dress line cuts fairly well. It's not as hard to handle as the silk. The silk is simply so gossamer like, it can be a little bit wayward when you're trying to cut it. In my clumsy hands anyway. Here we go. I'll cut this out and fold this up and put it away, because I don't want it getting all covered in dope, etc. when I finally start doing that. So we'll get this out the way, get the iron fired up, and we'll add the first bit of covering. Here we go. The iron has heated up, so I think we're ready to go. I'll tack this end first. And then pull it, if not tight, taut. That's taken nicely, reactivating the Mod Podge. Once I've done the ends, I come to the middle, and then the middle of the middle, and so on, all the way around. Takes really well. I've used this technique to reactivate glue, Gorilla Glue, to stick down balsa sheeting after I saw Cliff Harvey do it. Very, very effective if you've got large areas to sheet. I had used it with plywood, but I had it in my head that it wouldn't work with balsa because I thought the insulating properties of the balsa wood would prevent the transfer of heat. How wrong I was. It's very, very effective. It works really, really well. Far better than trying to battle with getting the CA to where you want it, or even worse, trying to pin down and glue up a sheeted area with hundreds of pins. It works really well. So thanks to Cliff for that. And you can see there, this works really well at covering the surface. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this a little bit closer. That side's fine. That side's a bit excessive. So actually I'll iron this down now, this side. Now because I'm ironing this over, I will need to re-add the Mod Podge to this cloth surface so that the side material has something to glue to. But that's not a major deal. And obviously folding it over like this ensures a nice contact. The aim is that the side panels will overlap onto the stringers, the longerons, but not any further than that. I'm going to trim that as well. So I can get where I've put the scissors. There they are. Trim a little bit more off this. There we go. I'm trying not to go onto the wood with the iron, because if I do so, all you do is you transfer the glue to the iron foot, which you don't want to do. So I'll trim that off, fold it over, and then we'll be ready for trimming this and adding the Mod Podge to the sides ready for the side panels. I'll also take the undercarriage off. I'm about to do this side panel. I've Mod Podged the edge over the previous bottom layer, and I'm going to tack this in place. And as Jeff from Low Alabama found out, it isn't easy putting covering on when the tail surfaces are in place, but due to the construction of this and the fact that it's a restoration or rebuild, I I didn't have much choice. To take the horizontal stab off would have probably destroyed it and part of the fuselage into the process. So I had no choice other than to do what I'm doing here. It's not ideal. It doesn't make life easy, but I hope with a little bit of care, it's doable. One can but hope and try, do our best. This area at the back is sheeted. That was a deliberate policy on my part because I thought it needed strength. And this of course is going to be doped as well. That's gone on okay, I'm quite happy with that. A couple of little wrinkles there which I can hopefully get out. I'll come back and trim this part later. Let's get this tacked along the length now. This is proving a little bit problematic. Let's see. Let's see, don't panic just yet. Apply a bit of heat here, I think. Got a feeling this is coming off again because it ain't right. No, that's not worked, so that's got to come off. Let's try again. Try it again. Okay, that didn't work, so let's try again. I'm being very generous this time. Before I tried to cut it a little bit too neat. So we'll trim it once it's glued in place. A little bit more awkward, but as I was saying, it's not the easiest way to cover a fuselage. In fact, it's a downright awkward way to do it, but I think this will work. I'm much more generous with the material, and I'll trim it off once it's on. Why not? That's worked already much better than before. Will mean that I have to trim this. That's doable. There we go, that's better. I may apply. Take that out. There's an alarm going off. Okay, I'll trim that off and we'll see what it looks like once I've turned that alarm off. The only way to trim this part here is by using a very, very sharp knife. So I've put a brand new blade in here. I was going to use the ruler, but I think it's going to have to be freehand, done carefully. No, I'm not happy with that. Let's try this bit. Yeah, it's not fun, this part, I must admit. Keep the heat on here. Ensure that it's well attached. So far so good. As the paratrooper said, without a parachute. So far so good. Come on. Yeah, that was a little bit fraught, but we're there. Let's apply a bit of heat there. Yep, that's worked. So I'll have to manoeuvre this around and using the crimping shears, get a nice even overlap here, and then I'll come back when I've got that ready and we line it on. Trimmed and ready to iron down now. Here we go. It's not as neat as I would like it to be, but once it's doped, that edge will virtually disappear and it's on the underside. I can be a lot more careful with the final cap on the top, but working around this horizontal stab makes for a difficult job. And quite honestly, I think this is the best I can do. So I'll have to glue around this, get this attached by using the heat from a steel rule. I can't get this iron in. I'll show you that in a second. Flick this over. and then I'll Mod Podge along this edge so that this top layer can be attached. I've put some Mod Podge here, but not on these stringers. The central one will help me line everything up, but beyond that I don't want these glued actually. There you go. I'll get a small rule and I'll demonstrate how you work around awkward places with a steel rule, and we'll tidy this rear end up. Just bear with me while I find the rule. To get into awkward places where this iron won't fit, I just simply heat up a ruler. I put my finger near the edge, and once it gets uncomfortable, it's up to temperature. I'll show you how I do that. It's getting warm. Just keep heating it up. That's done the job. And then I can trim off this excess in a moment. There we go. I'll repeat the other side. We'll do the top turtle deck, and then I'll call this part of the video done. The front end I'll do, and then we'll come back to it. And there we have it. That's the rear part of the fuselage covered, the open structure. The forward part is very straightforward. It's simply a case of ironing on the covering, and it obviously adheres to the Mod Podge which has been painted on here. A little bit awkward round the horizontal stabilizer, but it's done, and there you go. What I've actually done is I've sealed the edges with full strength dope, and I've shrunk this covering with the heat gun, but obviously it'll shrink a little more with the application of the shrinking dope. Ready for a couple of coats. It takes about 3 coats of thin down dope to seal this dress lining, and once it's done it'll be ready for the rather interesting colour scheme. So that's my last video of 2024. I hope everybody has soft landings for 25 and enjoys this hobby for all its different aspects. Get creative, have fun. Bye now.